It is my pleasure today to moderate this Bears Live webinar session, um, uh, um, which is about a topic which is not technical and not clinical, but is something which everybody needs. It's about designing a full service for interventional radiology. And today, Dr. Bandar Zafiri will talk about his experience in designing such a service. And Dr. Abdullah Kohestani from Philips, he is gonna speak about this issue. So I'm gonna start to introduce my friend, Dr. Bandar Zafiri, who is gonna talk today about talk about titles From Empty Corridor to a Full Service Interventional Center, more efficient service and better patient experience. The sounds is very interesting, which is, I think, all of us we need to know about it. So Dr. Bandar Zafiri is an assistant professor of radiology at the College of Medicine in Dammam University. And he's also a consultant endovascular and interventional radiology and the chairman of radiology at the King Fahd Hospital University in Al Khobar. He's an active member. He's one of the founders of Saudi Society for of Interventional Radiology, and he's an active member in the CERSI and SIR in addition to ECR. His talk will be about his experience in building IR service in the King Fahd University Hospital. And actually his experience will be, as I'm expecting, that it will be very helpful for us because being a chairman, he could tell us about the challenges anybody of us maybe face it in building such a service. Dr. Bandar, would you please start your talk?
Thank you very much, Dr. Azzam, for this nice introduction. Just a small correction. I am ex-chairman of radiology. Now I'm not chairman anymore. Okay. Actually, this is what I'm going to do today is just I'm telling you our story at King Fahd University Hospital. How could we change the workflow of interventional radiology to have really a single focus of what we need and how we went through all the steps from the ideas to the implementation of the system to the workflow of the interventional radiology. I think still, we as interventional radiologists, still we don't have a dedicated ideas about our work, our procedure. Most of the times, most of us came to the hospital from scholarship, founding the interventional suite or angio suite ready to use. And most of the times, it's not the one that we want to be, or we want to do our procedure on that. So if you are planning to establish a new interventional suite, I think it's very good to get yourself involved in all steps of establishment of the interventional suite. So the final product of this project will be compatible with your vision and with your what you are looking for and when you're doing the procedures. So the idea started. I'll try to move the slides, not moving. Yes, so we'll just talk about the vision of our interventional radiology department, requirement, challenges, and how could we partnership with Philips during this project to have the project to reality, and what solutions that they offer to us to get what really we are looking for. So our vision was to have a state-of-the-art interventional suite. Of course, everybody is looking for advanced technology. Now with the complexity of the procedure, IR procedure became more and more complex, and And many angio system, especially the new angio system, I think they have very good and very smart softwares that can help us making our procedure more accurate and more successful. Unfortunately, most of us, because I think mainly because of the busy schedule, we don't use those advanced technology very much. But it's always to have a system with the advanced technology that you need. Of course, our procedure are broad. It's not like it's completely different from, for example, in cath lab, they are working on the certain vascular territory most of the time. More than 90% of their procedure concentrated on the heart. So all what they need, they can build it around this vascular territory regarding technology, equipment, and everything. But for IR, the broad spectrum of the procedure make things become more and more difficult, because you need really some system that can cover all those broad spectrum of procedure, whether they are vascular procedure, non-vascular procedure, oncology procedure. Each one of those procedure need really special attention and special requirements. So what we were looking for, that the system that can help us in performing those broad spectrum of procedure. Of course, beside the procedure itself, we need a full suite with preparation area for the patient before the procedure room, recovery after the procedure, especially procedure that needs anesthesia, and store or mini store on site, that if you need an items urgently during the procedure, no need to go to a distance store to get what you need. It's good to have a mini store inside your area, and of course staff lounges and staff offices for IR doctors and for nurses and for technologists. Of course, also we were looking for a place which is close to important areas in the hospital, and I mean by important areas, that the area that usually we deal with as IR, for example, emergency room or emergency department, usually, or better to be close to interventional suite, especially in case of trauma and bleeding, that you really don't have a lot of time to waste in transportation of the patients. OR, for example, it's good to have the angio suite close to OR, in case that in some cases that complications happen, whether in interventional suite or in OR. Fortunately, most of the time complication happen in OR and treated in interventional radiology suite. So you need really to be close to OR, and dialysis unit, for example. Dialysis intervention is a really important part of IR, of daily practice. So most of those patients will need dialysis either before or right after the interventional procedure done for them. So it's good to have your angio suite close to dialysis. And of course, radiology, because we are using a lot of radiological facilities like CT scan, CT guided procedure, and others that need to be close to the interventional suite. So just a small idea about our hospital, King Fahd Hospital University. It's a leading healthcare institution in the region, providing patient care with advanced diagnostic technology. The hospital is affiliated to Imam Abdurrahman bin Faisal University College of Medicine, and the hospital was established or founded in 1981. It's almost 40 years back, 42 years back. The capacity of the hospital around 700 beds, and the number of eye procedure, estimation of the procedure per year, maybe around 2,500 IR procedure performed in this hospital per year. It's a level 1 trauma center in the region, and is the largest training and academic center in the Eastern Province in Saudi Arabia. Most of the radiology resident, medical student, they get their training in this hospital. So what were the challenges that we faced during the preparation of this project? First of all, space. As you see, the hospital is a little bit old. It's not a very new hospital. So to have or to extend an area outside the hospital, or to build up a new area, it's not easy because there is no really space outside the walls of the hospital. It's fully built and fully occupied. So it's difficult really to have or to create a new space for interventional radiology. So the best thing to do is to find a space within the available floor, or within the available or very close to the radiology department. Of course, cost is very important, especially during those days. Cost of such project could be a little bit expensive, so you have to negotiate and convince the administration for the cost of the procedure, and this really deserves to be established. And most of the time, it will save a lot of cost for the hospital. As we know, most of the IR procedure can be done as one-day surgery or even outpatient procedure, which save a lot of cost to the hospitals. At the same time, we would like to continue our patient care. I mean, we don't want to stop the work while building a new interventional suite. So continuity of care is very important for us. We want to build up the new interventional suite, and this should not affect the current workflow of our hospital. Of course, negotiation with the administration and convincing them is a little bit hard task, but it's doable. I mean, if you have a good statistics, you can show them your statistics, and how can you save money to the hospital and beds, especially in busy hospital like our hospital, where we like to do procedure as a day procedure or as outpatient procedure because the hospital is really busy. So in modern interventional radiology, I mean, any modern interventional radio suite, whenever you think of upgrading your system or establishing a new area, the system that you are looking for should have three things. Should be efficient, of course, in doing all type of procedure that you need. Flexible, especially for IR. When you do a lot of different procedures at different part of the body, you need really flexible system that can help you in doing those broad spectrum of a procedure, and versatile system, of course, that can do any type of a procedure with high efficiency. Requirement for any interventional suite, modern interventional suite, of course, patient in processing or reception, as we call it, reception. Again, some of the IR procedure can be done as outpatient, especially like biopsies and FNAs. So patient usually walk into the interventional suite to get their appointment. Preparation and holding area before the procedure. You need to get the patient before the procedure, prepare him, check his lab work, put cannula sometimes if the patient has no cannula, prepare the patient for the procedure. And of course, in some hospital, they like to do induction of anesthesia in the holding area before starting the procedure. Procedure rooms, of course, important. Post anesthesia care unit or recovery is also important in interventional radiology suite. Waiting area for companion or for family of the patient outside the interventional radiology, of course. Staff locker, gowning space for lead apron and others, staff lounges, and central sterile processing supplies in case of reusable or sterilable items, and supply storage. Of course, you cannot have a full function storage in interventional suite, but at least you can have a mini store that can get your daily requirement of items that you need. Of course, inside the room, we need a lot of equipment inside the room. That's why whenever you think of upgrading your system, always think of the space available and the distance of the room that you are using, because you will need a lot of equipment during the procedure, hemodynamic equipment, anesthesia machine, which are fixed in interventional suite, perfusion system, surgical instrument tables in case of hybrid procedure. Sometimes you might need to do hybrid procedure, especially in aortic intervention. So it's good to have a surgical instrument tables. Of course, most of the procedure will be done with ultrasound equipment on the side of the patient, medical gases, of course, recording equipment and computers, especially if you are doing live transmission cases or educational sessions. This is very useful to have lid apron and the glasses, of course, and scrub area, scrub sink, and other like depend on the procedure that you need. Sometimes if you need radio frequency, if you are doing radio frequency ablation, you need the place or space for the generators, CO2 injector, mechanical thrombectomy devices. They have their own generators, and which need space to be available around the patient whenever you plan to do those procedures. Our situation before we established this project, we have 2 interventional suites. They are separated from each other. They are not on the same area. We don't have a recovery after the procedure. We are sharing the recovery room with the day surgery unit, which is close to interventional radiology, but we don't have our own recovery space. Of course, we don't have a separate reception. We have a common reception with the radiology. So most of the patients who need appointment for IR procedure, they will be on the reception of the main radiology with the other patient who are waiting their appointment for imaging studies. We don't have holding area, so the patient will come directly from the floor, directly inside the room. Then the patient will stay in the room for a few minutes, maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes, for the nurse to prepare the patient, to take his vital signs, connect him to the monitors, and checking his blood work and lab and everything. So this, again, this will waste sometimes during the for the procedure. And the location of the staff, because of the construction of the space, and it's a really old space. We don't have an offices close to the interventional suite. So most of the staff, especially IR doctors, their offices are a little bit away. Some of them, they are in another floor of the interventional suite. So regarding the space, as we said, it's really that was, I think, the hardest part of the project, to find a good space which can fulfill the requirement. We don't have really much of a space that can be extended in the department itself. So we were looking for any available or potential space that can be converted into interventional suite, and we found this quite big corridors. It's very close to radiology department, very close to ER, OR, dialysis unit, and it can be extended from the backside toward the parking, and also it can be connected to OR from the backside. So we thought that is a good place. If we will choose the place, that will be the best place to start our project here. And after we choose the place, then we were searching for a partnership with a company to have all those ideas to come to reality. Of course, angio system provided by I will say good number of companies here in Saudi Arabia, at least. So we were choosing and meeting with different companies to have our vision and our goals come true. As you know, again, for IR procedure, because of the nature of IR procedure, and they are really broad spectrum. So sometimes you need really a good, flexible and versatile system. So you can, for example, we look at the image here on the left side. Now we are doing dialysis intervention for the fistula of this patient. So you need the system to be closely beside the patient. On the same time, you need the space to stay or to stand beside the patient to do the procedure, without obscuring your accessibility to the patient, of course. If you look at the image, this is the typical interventional radiology suite. You have a lot of equipment around the patient, ultrasound monitors. Sometimes you need to check the Doppler, especially if you are doing lower limb angioplasty or critical limb ischemia during the procedure. At the same time, doctors are doing their procedure, and the room is really big enough to accommodate all those personnel and all those equipment. So we, after multiple meetings, we decided to go with the Philips Azorion Flex system. We thought it is the best for us to, on this stage, to have The system is really. Then we started we started the project with the company. We set a lot of meetings. We discuss all the requirement that we need, and before we start everything, we give them a really clear plan that what we need exactly and what type of a procedure that we are doing. And I think this is very important. Whenever you want to upgrade your system, always have a meeting with the company, which will perform or the project. Tell them what you need and what you are planning to do in the near future. Even if you are planning to do something maybe in the near future, in the coming 1 or 2 years, talk to them, because sometimes once those big projects established and start to use, it's very difficult to modify or to change the project. So it's good to have to have a meeting with them and just explain everything. For us as a clinician, we don't know a lot about technical part and construction, but I think they have very good team. They can sit with you and you can tell them all your needs, and they will came out with the plan, and then you can modify the plan according to your needs. So the angio suite was the new project was started, I think, by the end of 2019, just a few months before the COVID pandemics. And there was opportunity to reimagine the interventional service line. The goal was to create one central hub for the entire care pathway, from arrival of the patient to the reception, to preparation area, to the treatment, and to recovery. And the challenge was just to fit this vision into the available space, which is, as you can see, it's just a corridor. So after setting the goals and putting the plan and everything, as you can see, this corridor now became really a big interventional suite. It's a full suite, and the idea was to have a central hub for everything. I mean, we want everything to be done in the same space, in the same place. We don't want patient to go from one place to other place to get, for example, appointment or recovery or holding area. We want everything to be done in the same place, from arrival of the patient, whether they are outpatient or inpatient, till they leave the angio suite with their procedure done. So we met with the cross-functional team, who did a really good research, and they understand the department's way of working and needs. And based on those researches, the project team improved the initial design. And after multiple meetings and after multiple modifications, they modify the initial design and select the right technology, or they advise about how to select the right technology to fit the available space. And as a result, the floor plan, detailed floor plan was given to us, and the new clinical workflow was exceptionally flexible, and for both procedure, vascular and non-vascular, of course, together with the ongoing educational support. So if you go to a website for Society of Interventional Radiology, they have really detailed criteria and requirement for establishing an interventional suite. One of those criteria is the space or recommended space for any interventional suite. According to their recommendation, 650 square feet, which should be enough to accommodate all what you need. So this is the detailed floor plan. We have everything in one space or in one place. This is from entrance side. Those are some lounges for the staff, technologists, female bathroom, male bathrooms. Those are offices for interventional radiologists, where they can sit and review the patient images before or after the procedure, where they can do their reporting. And then we have, this is the first area, or area number 1, as we call it. Then we have this area number 2, which has the patient recovery and holding area. We have 4 beds for recovery and holding area, pre and post procedure. We have also a mini store that containing all important daily items that is used during the daily work during the procedure. We have the reception also here, IR reception. So those there is a receptionist sitting there all the time. for giving patient appointments, especially outpatient. And then we have the control room, and then we have this main interventional suite. Actually, we have two suites, one for interventional radiology, and the other one we call it hybrid suite or hybrid OR. This other suite connected indirectly from the other side, from this side, to operation theater. So in this hybrid room, a hybrid procedure can be performed. Now, this hybrid room mainly used for neuro interventional procedure, and sometimes for a big vascular procedure, for aortic surgeries and other procedures. But the main objective for this room was for neurosurgery colleagues. They are doing a lot of procedure there in OR because sometimes they need to do a hybrid procedure also. So all this project came in one place, from entry to all the other facilities, to procedure room, to holding area, and if needed, to the hybrid room and to the OR, of course. This is how it looks like. This is the interventional radiology room. This is the scrub sink just at the door of the angio suite. And the goal was to create area where all vascular and non-vascular surface run without any interruption. And with the new angio suite and waiting, with available waiting and recovery areas, all patients can easily be moved through the process without without leaving the department from one place to another place. And as a result, the workflow become more efficient, and the number of procedures that we can perform on daily basis has been increased, of course. And there is a very good positive psychological effect on the patients. Team is working around them all the time, from the moment they arrive to the department to the moment they are prepared for the procedure, throughout the recovery and after the procedure. And of course, with the educational support from application specialists with Philips, they have online education system. Also, they are available online and through telephone whenever some technical points needed. Even if during the procedure, they are always available to help and support our technical staff. And they have, of course, a frequent visit to the site with the application specialist, who usually gradually introduce new procedure and the new software to the staff, and train them how to use those softwares. I think our center, we are doing a lot of IVUS guided procedure. I know intravascular ultrasound is underutilized, especially for interventional radiologists. Our cardiology colleagues, they are using IVUS more frequent. They are using it more in good percentage of their procedure, I will say. But for us as IR, we don't use a lot of IVUS. I don't know why, but it's really underutilized. IVUS is very good and very helpful tools if used in a proper patient. There are a lot of clinical scenarios where you can utilize IVUS, especially during deep venous intervention, venous stenting. Sometimes if you are using with other items like subintimal angioplasty and stenting, when you cannot go back to the lumen, you can use IVUS with a re-entry device from Philips. And there are really now a number of application of IVUS and IR increasing more and more. Now recently we are using this for aortic dissection, sometimes for properly sizing the aorta, the true lumen for stenting. Of course, we can check the full expansion of the stent after implementation of the stent. We can study the plaque itself around the vessels and heavily calcified arteries. Really, it's very helpful. I think most of IR, they don't use it because they think it's a little bit complicated, but actually IVUS is very easy to use. It's very, very easy, straightforward technology to use, and it's good to have it in your interventional suite. So again, the most important things on any interventional radiology today is efficiency, flexibility, and versatility. Now this is sometimes you might get a patient, especially orthopedic patient, their beds are special. They have a special bed. Usually they're quite big. And so you need a very good space, whether inside the room or for recovery to accommodate those big beds. But the other important points, especially during intervention, sometimes you might get a really sick patient who cannot lie on the normal position for a procedure, which is supine position. For example, this patient, he needs a nephrostomy insertion, and he has comorbidities and multiple lung disease that he cannot lie on his back for the procedure. So we have to put him on his lateral decubitus position for the nephrostomy. And in the same time, we need to see exactly where is our needles, where is our guide wires, and how is we can puncture. And you can see nicely the system turn around the patient in this position. And you have a very good distance or space around the patient to perform the procedure without any obstruction. And again, in many procedures, you need a lot of equipment around the patient, like ultrasound, IVUS, CO2 injector, regular injector, or other injector, for example. So you need really a good system that can give you a space around the patient to have a free movement around the patient. Of course, advanced software. Now, most of the company, every company have their own software, but for us with Philips, we are using many softwares. One of the good and important software for us, because we are doing a lot of arterial intervention, is the perfusion software and navigation software. Whenever you do a big complex aortic procedure, you need really to reduce the amount of contrast during the procedure. This software can combine the pre-existing CT scan or MRI, even if it is done in another hospital. Then you can just load it into the system, and you can have overlay with the fluoro images, and by this you will reduce significantly the number of or the amount of contrast media which can be given to the patient. The perfusion software on the left side will give you a very good idea during the procedure whenever you do intervention for critical limb ischemia, to know if you are doing, if you are the blood to the affected area has been increased after intervention or no, and proximity to other areas, as we said. So to ensure success, the design of interventional radiology suite really require a special consideration. The design will require balancing the requirement and the equipment need for different medical disciplines and different applications, so only with the medical professionals' inputs, which is mainly IR, we can have a state-of-the-art interventional radiology suite which can be established and designed and constructed on the same way. And the final thoughts, the IR suite has some unique design and equipment requirement that will allow for it to meet state-of-the-art use of the daily cases. And again, the interventional radiology service save a lot of money to the hospitals. So I think it's not very hard to convince the administration to have a good budget to have a state-of-the-art interventional radiology suite. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Bender, for this nice introduction, for your experience. Actually, it seems like it's not easy to make such a kind of a plan to convert a corridor into angio suite. Yeah, and actually it's also seems like very challenging to think about small details, including the future things about upgrading, what kind of procedure, and how your hospital actually going to be developed. And like, for example, if they open new service, so that means you have to introduce service for them as well.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Actually, we're gonna make the discussion after the next presentation. So let me introduce Mr. Abdullah Kohestani. He's a director from director. He's in charge of healthcare experience design. Mr. Abdullah is an expert in healthcare transformation with extensive expertise across various competency. He helped hospitals and health systems to translate their strategic vision into innovative and within design to deliver the best and most efficient care for patients. He has a great experience in technology, the project planning, and today he cannot talk a very important subject about environment design in IR, which sometimes, or like most of the time, we don't, as IR, we don't think about it too much because we think this is a job of the engineers or the biomedical department in our hospital. Would you please, Mr. Abdullah, start your talk?
Yes, thank you very much for the introduction. I hope you can see my screen in full now in front of you. Thanks for the introduction. Dr. Bander, congratulations with your achievement, and really thank you for sharing your experience with us and the broader audience, because at the end, your experience will be for everybody valuable to learn from. And I think it's a great example on how we have actually taken a different approach to overcome a lot of challenges in realizing such a project. So let me go to the next slide. So I will be actually speaking about certain topics today. And all of this is actually because at the end of the day, we all care about patient and staff experience. It's all about our passion to serve our population with the best possible care, right? And it's also fair to say that technology innovation has been really one of the main pillars of main contributors in the evolution of the interventional radiology, right? So it's always been around the technology that can enable new type of procedures, enhancing them and improve them. So with that in mind, I will be speaking today about what is happening in the interventional radiology spectrum in relation to the physical environment, like Dr. Bander explained, and how you can prepare yourself for future changes, the way Dr. Bander did it, and how you can benefit from. So before I move to that, it's maybe important to stay a couple of seconds on what are actually the main drivers and trends. So we say that interventional radiology of tomorrow will cover a broader range of procedures. Dr. Bander already mentioned that they can do more than they did before. And this is mainly driven by new technologies. So I think at the end of the day, the role of the interventional radiology within the hospital ecosystem will also change. And this changes mainly because we see an inflow of more increased complexity in regards to the procedures that are performed within the ER. And at the same time, more procedures are performed faster, right? Because the techniques and the experiences are helping us to perform them more minimum invasive and faster. And therefore, of course, the main driver is the involvement in precision medicine techniques applied for the procedures. What we also see is that the increased complexity and the involvement in the techniques leads to new inflow of services and procedures. So you can do more within the same room. So what you typically had more in the operating theater environment is flowing much more into the interventional radiology, and also new type of treatments are also introduced. So in the case of Dr. Bander, we see also that they are even looking to more oncology-related procedures to capture the need because of the techniques. But of course, it's not only limited to the better technique and to the increased complexity, but it's also I think you have all already noticed the digital transformation that we have ahead of us. This will also help us to become even more connected as an interventional radiology department with other disciplines in the care delivery. So all of this will have huge impact on how interventional radiology will be organized in the future in the hospitals. So if we look to the trends, and of course, one of the reasons can be that you just need to replace a piece of technology, or there is ambition to grow the services within an organization. What we see in majority of the cases that the growth is more inorganic, like within a hospital already existing, trying to establish a new situation. So the trends that I mentioned before, they will of course change the role of the ER within the ecosystem. And when you're adapting new, or you want to infuse new services within the interventional radiology department, it's important that you take the entire patient journey in consideration. So from outpatient services to the diagnostics, to the intervention itself, recovery and post-recovery. I think we saw that Dr. Bander wanted to organize everything around these patients by having the prep and recovery area and including the reception all close to the interventional radiology suite, whereby he can actually move around the patient rather than the patient is actually hopping around. It's important that the changes that you take, they are actually interrelated across the entire patient journey. So with that, what I mean is that when you're adding a new service, it's important to actually calculate the impact it has on all other sub-functions and support functions within your department. To give an example, if you're able to run more procedures within your interventional unit, or the room itself, because of the new techniques, like Dr. Bander explained, you will have more inflow and outflow of patients. So it's always good to reconsider the capacity requirements, for example, of your recovery and post-recovery area, to see if that is still fitting the amount of patients that you will process throughout your interventional room. So this is very important to consider, because at the end of the day, you don't want to have one of the other support areas become your bottleneck, while you have actually a great interventional suite, but the inflow and outflow of patient is stacked because of the inefficiency or disbalance in terms of capacity with other functions and support functions, like outlined here in a bit more visualization. And when you listen to the story of Dr. Bander, they have thought about this very carefully to make sure that they actually avoid any disbalance later on in the operations. The next slide is actually more a bit of process. So I will keep it more on high level. I assume we have audiences from different backgrounds. And I think it's important that we all actually do acknowledge that the way we deliver care is actually rapidly changing. And this is also for interventional radiology the case. But unfortunately, the traditional development process on designing a department from very early stage is not actually always helping us to make a design of a department that will suit for a long time. So it's in most cases very siloed. You can see here from my screen that there is a strategy phase where people are actually defining what is a good service to develop further. This could be because of a population requirement, or this could be because of a piece of technology that can enable new procedures to be embedded into your department. But it's very silo, and then there is a team that is actually working on the design, and then it's handed over actually to the construction company who's building. So within this process, you're actually considering your surface plan, you're considering your design, your space, and the technology requirements. And typically, this takes quite some time. On average, between 0 to 2 years. That's what we see for a department level, from the initial plan till realization. And when you realize your department, I have put also 4 question marks here. Those are more concerns of experience that I have seen with other hospitals. Well, at the moment we will be opening, well, the services that I have now configured, and the technology that I have selected, will they be relevant actually for the population? And how much is it relevant still? The capacity mix in 2 years' time might be totally different, right? So will that still fit? And is the technology that we have selected along the whole journey the right technology? And do we need new techniques? Dr. Banner already mentioned that the IFUS is now embedded within the system. In the past, it was a totally different, two different pieces of equipment that were actually operating from each other, not jointly together. It's now together. So this will have also impact on the room configuration and its setup during your workflow when you're performing a procedure. And of course, it's all very much technical. So do the layouts and technical requirements fit the current space? So in terms of Dr. Banner, there's a corridor, but you cannot just turn a corridor into a radiology or an interventional room. Yeah, you need also to make sure that all the requirements are taken serious. So here I do see the role of the physicians very important, role of the facility management, the medical directors, all of them. Their role is very important here, and you need to consider it. But unfortunately, this is very much siloed. So we do see quite some challenges at the moment that construction is completed, that when they move into operation, that there are already mismatches happening, and there are already bottlenecks in the operations. And some of these bottlenecks that we see, first of all, there is a huge focus on new technology. Yeah, so we need the latest technology. But what is the impact of this technology on the total and the holistic vision of the department? So infusing a new technology with new possibilities will have impact on the total department, right? So how does it look like, and how will it interfere with each other? In many cases, because the focus is on technology, we do see also that there is workflow issues. Because of addition of new service lines, new procedures, the workflow is not anymore fitting, because the purpose on how it was designed in the past and current, they are not matching anymore, where you see that there is a workflow issues, which at the end will generate inefficiencies in the operations. And with actually great regret, the last point, which is not enough focus on patient and staff experience. This is something that I have experienced more, and I do see that because of difficult situation in terms of space, for example, there are choices made which at the end leads to less good patient experience, and also for staff, we do see longer distances to walk. For example, there is not enough space considered from the beginning on the storage, or the inflow of patients between the front end and the back end. There is a huge gap there, where we see that the staff is actually suffering, and they are taking way more walks and steps during a day than actually necessary. And this all because a certain time this part is really forgotten into the in the whole technical discussion when it moves into the process. So this is just from my learning. What should you consider? So what are the key considerations? So first of all, to avoid all of that, it's important that you create a shared vision across the patient journey. So as I mentioned before, it's not only within your own interventional room that you need to consider to improve and to infuse latest technology and new way of working, but it's very important to have a vision that is actually across the entire patient journey, so that everybody in the chain can actually understand what is their role, what will be the change, and what they can expect, and how to make sure that the entire chain is actually ready. And it's 2022, so meaning that we have a lot of technologies and methodologies that we should use to support us understand different scenarios and test these scenarios, and then only then make your decision on what is the best possible scenario for your interventional radiology for now, but also for the future. So capacity testing beyond your own suite is very important, so that you can take the full impact in consideration. Align master plan, and master plan is not only from a eye of a facility or real estate manager, but it's also from a medical director's level. So what is the total clinical service that you're offering, and what does it mean if you're adding new services into the radiology department? and what is the future looking like. But at the same time, if you interfere with your real estate manager, they will exactly tell you what are the possibilities, impossibilities. And last not least, it's important to make sure that your interventional department is in synergy with other adjacent functions within the hospital. I think Dr. Bander mentioned about being close to the ER, being close to the radiology department. All that helps. And at the end, make sure that you have a place for continued team collaboration, so that there is a space where your team can be together, where they can share their experiences, share their knowledge, but also, if possible, have it in an area where you can actually be able to communicate and cross-collaborate with your direct adjacent functions around your interventional radiology. In the case of Dr. Bander, I think it's important to have a good relationship and connection with the operating theater, where you have the hybrid room, where you can also start doing your performance of more complex cases in the operating theaters. So all of that you can actually achieve when you really think integrated and more in a collaborative approach. So you see here a very complex picture, but at the end, it's all about having a sound clinical plan. Okay, how are your clinical activities fit, and what is the patient care flow that you're actually intending to follow? How does it actually operationally work? Because efficiency is important. You're investing quite some money, and it's important that every cent of this investment is actually utilized, and a correct workflow and supporting processes will help you to make sure that you're also efficient in using the space and the technology and the staff that you have. And of course, let's not forget the patient and staff experience, because at the early stage you can define. I saw a nice sky there at the interventional radiology department of Dr. Bander, which already creates a more welcoming atmosphere to work in, and this impact is already measured by them as being a very positive for patients, but also for staff. Of course, that's one element, but there is way more to consider. The lounge, for example, that there is a lounge where staff can sit together, where they can have a relaxation moment and at the same time exchange knowledge. But also for patient and staff, when there is a need for a private dialogue close to the interventional radiology, that you can actually sit privately in a quiet environment with the staff, with the patient and the visitors, their family, to maybe discuss some of the important cases or maybe complications that there are with a patient. And of course, at the end, from the early beginning, you need to consider the technology innovations. So in case of Dr. Bander, he teamed up with Philips, and we could provide them what is actually the technology forecast, and what should they already consider to be sure that in the coming years they can benefit from the great technology innovation that technology companies like Philips has. But of course, be open to engage this also with other vendors of other technologies, so that you can actually make sure that your choice for technology is not only for today, but also is thinking about your future needs. And if you consider all of this at the early stage in your strategy phase, then you actually run it through the design and build, and during operations, I'm sure you will have a smooth start of your operations and potentially be ready for future changes even. And this is an example of what I mentioned about scenario testing, modeling, and assessing what is the best change you can do. This is a simulation model where you can see utilization of the space, utilization of the staff, but also the design and the workflow. How is it actually embedded? These techniques and tools are all available, and you can make use of them. And this usage will help you to make your decisions more based on data compared to today. I am going now to my final slides. So then it's all about the workflow, right? So we are not an architect firm, right? But it's for us important that there is a workflow that is actually ready for implementation in your facility. That at the end of the day, that one department is actually interlinked and correspondence with vertically and also horizontally with the rest of the hospital, and make sure that that your workflow and the processes and the relationship is really set from the beginning right. And Dr. Bander already mentioned about, it's all about whatever you do, whatever you propose, it's about the quadruple aim. It's, you know, it's all about how to improve the patient experience, have impact on better health outcomes, improve staff experience, and of course, at the end of the day, lower cost of care. And this is something that you need to consider at any time. And the previous slide, when you have an integrated approach in your clinical, operational, and technological, if you combine this and also apply some of our design thinking expertise, I can help you with that if needed, then you can be sure that you will meet your organization's targets financially, clinically, and also from a experience perspective. This was my part. I'm closing. I'm sure you might have your own, let's say, challenges. And if you would like to connect with me, please be welcome, and you can always connect. Thank you very much for listening. Back to you, Azam.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Kohestani, about this nice presentation, which is really, you enlighten some point which maybe we don't, again, we don't as interventional radiology pay attention to it. I have a question actually for you and for Dr. Bander. About, you know, Dr. Bander, he showed us a screen which having the picture of IVUS. First question, is the IVUS is integrated in the machine itself?
You're on mute, Doctor.
Yeah, you are muted, Dr. Bander. Dr. Bander, we are muted. Still muted?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
No.
Yeah. Actually, we have two systems. We have the one which I show on the slides. It's integrated into the system with the same screen. So the beauty of this system that it has a really big screen that can be split, and you can use the IVUS, which is integrated into the angio suite itself or interventional system itself. And we, of course, we have another IVUS, previously known as Volcano. Still, we have that portable one, but we have both. The one I showed, it's a built-in system, which is I really recommend to have.
I see. Because, you know, when, like day after day, we are increasing, like our tools are increasing. For example, ablation devices, ablation modality. It's nice to have it like all of them integrated in our system. Or the system will be having the capability and capacity to accept different modality from different makers, from different companies to be built inside or connected to that system. And that is, I think, is a good point. Regarding the this designing space, Mr. Abdullah, I think that it would be, you need really to have a very creative mentality and to think very deeply about how to arrange that area to include all those points, you know, to improve the patient experience or staff experience and improve the care provided to the patients. Regarding the question, I just have one question in the asking you through the chat. One guy from Nigeria, he asking about that the problem is not with the design, is with the consumable. I think this is question can be related to the company providing tools and for negotiation. It's a little bit out of our topic about, you know, about how to deal with building IR suite.
Yeah, but maybe I can say one thing about that. So, so for the supply, I can understand, but it's important also how do you organize your inventory, stocking, of course, within the department. So those are the elements that you can consider. What is the best, most efficient way to organize and have a better view on your supplies and your stock and the inventory, so that you can actually not have too much in stock, but at the same time have enough and optimized available within your department. As a side answer.
I can conclude from the story of Dr. Bander and your presentation. Really, you have to have a very deep thinking to think about. You have to know what is even the future plan of your healthcare institution when you plan your future IR suite. And that Dr. Bander, he was actually make us pay attention to it. So what kind of patient you are going to solve, and what kind of problem we gonna face and challenging we have to solve in order to to respond to these needs we're gonna face it in the future.
Yeah, one more comment, Dr. Azzam, if you allow me. I think the best thing to do is to get yourself involved from the beginning of the project. Because in most of the time for us as IR or as a clinician, most of the time we are not getting the chance to be involved in the beginning of the project. So if you get yourself involved in the beginning of the project, I think, and it's also a good idea nowadays, we are seeing a team from the companies that can sit with you and ask you about your needs, requirement, and everything just before starting anything. So if you sit with those team and plan with them your requirement, and also I advise always don't tell them your current situation. Even if you have a short-term planning, it's good to have this to be on board also during planning. So because that's a really a good, big and huge project, if you cannot modify it easily in the future. I mean, at least in the near future. So if you are planning to do something different in the coming 2-3 years, for example, it's better also to have those, to get them involved with you during the startup of the project. And I think when you get yourself involved from the beginning and you tell them what you need exactly at the end, this will be reflect in positive way of the final product, which really make your workflow better and your procedure, of course, smoother.
Yeah, sounds good. I don't see any question from the audience. Let me see, maybe there's somebody.
Yeah, there is one there. Is there a specific circuit? I think if you can read it. There is in the
Sorry?
chat. There is one question in the chat.
Yes, I think for you specifically, Dr. Bander, it's as you know, establishing a new angio is expensive. How can we overcome the budget issue with the hospital leaders?
Yes, as I say, the interventional radiology saving a lot of money to the hospitals. If you really talk in, I mean, in a business way with the administrators, show them your statistics, because most of those procedures originally performed by surgery. So requiring admission, long stay in the hospitals, anesthesia, and this is really make the cost is quite expensive. Now, if you are doing those procedure in interventional suite, that's mean less hospital stay, less complication rates, less cost, of course, to the patient. So at the end, you will say, of course, you will spend a lot of money for those projects, but on the long run, you will save a lot of money also. And of course, you can save those bids for more important, more type of a procedure, especially big surgical procedure. Because nowadays, most of the hospital are, it's really difficult to find a bed for admission for, especially during pandemic and other things. So doing those procedures in interventional radiology really is a privilege for the hospital. So I think it's not very difficult to convince the administration to have a budget. As long as you have a budget, at least in the hospital, I think they can realize the importance and the amount of money that they can save in the short term, in the long term, when you invest on the interventional radiology suite. I'm talking about the governmental, of course, setting. And the hospital settings, they are really very well aware about the financial importance of IR. And I think now many big private hospitals in Saudi Arabia, I'm talking about Saudi Arabia, they are investing really good money on the establishing and running interventional suite, because it's really rewarding in terms of financial reward.
I think, Dr. Bender, what you have mentioned actually can be applied on private sector as well, starting always negotiating by showing the value of IR. And I just want to mention to our colleagues, I think Dr. Khalid Masar, who asked this question, that there is a nice presentation on the Society of Interventional Radiology site that can be used to negotiate the administration, the government, the university, whatever authority you are dealing with, even the owners of private business, how to show the value of IR and how much cost saving can be performed by having such kind of service. Yeah. So there is no more other question. So at the end, I think we come to conclude. I think it's all the time. I want to thank Dr. Bandar Dafiri, Mr. Abdullah Kohestani, and Philips for association with our webinar. In addition to the people who were organizing everything from BEARS. So thank you very much, and maybe soon we'll be coming to the new webinar with BEARS. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Bandar. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks.